Well, week 3 in our class is really, for me, the most fun part of what I get to do, which is meet you. And that could invoke a variety of emotions, right? Because and you're not meeting me just casually, which by the way, I'd recommend you do come in and just, come to office hours and say hi. Because maybe then when you come in for your code reviews, it might not be quite as much, right? The other thing, the reason you might come in is also to make sure your screens, because you're going to share your screen with me for your code review. So I'm jumping right into the code review because that's where we end this week. Of course, before we get there, we have some other work to do. We have day 6 and day 7. I talked about week 2. Day 6 for me, I was traveling and couldn't wrap my head around it. Here's a suggestion I'm going to give you. If you find that you just can't get it, you want to look at the solution, it's okay, but give yourself some time after you've seen it. You sit and think about it, you walk away from it, maybe even the next day, which is what I did. And then you try to write that code again without looking at the solution, because that's really where, and this is why you'll see me harping on these comments to make sure here's my code and here's a solution code. Because that time that you take is so important. I can't emphasize how important that is. And if you're skipping that process, you're really going to feel it this week. And even if you did them, you are going to feel how well you have taken in, understood it, and be able to use the concepts that we covered in these first 3 weeks of the semester. But here's what I want you to know. Since we're on week 3, by the end of this week, you really are on week 6 of a regular 18-week class. So this week normally happens in week 6 in the 18-week class, which is your first time to write code and come into a code review with me. Okay. Now I have a video on that that I'm going to include here, and I'll just mention it as I look at what I want you to reply. Okay, but I just want you to know, right, where we're heading. But before we get there, let's take a look at this week's work. And get rid of me for a minute, minimize this for a minute. So what's kind of interesting is that this day in actual real world of when I'm recording is 2 weeks ahead of where this video, this week 3 is, because I find there's a group of you, and I encourage all students to work ahead as much as possible, because you can see how the weeks will vary as far as the days that we do. So this week, because we have your first big project, we only do 2 days in the course. Now, these 2 days are a good challenge, I think, right? So let's just look at day 6 first. I'll come back over here. So scroll down to day 6. Like before, I've actually just given, here's the output. It doesn't look like a lot of output. The thing is, we're using this external site. So what I'm going to have you do is, as you do the code over here, which I thought this was totally fun for me, but sorry, as you do that, then just put your output, because it's not really working Python code, and just put that in the README file and note every one of them. So when you complete each video, right, put it in a markdown file, just paste in your comments in there. And then you do have one file where she writes this short function, but we get definitely after our dev 0, we get introduced more to the ideas of functions and understanding them, which is why I've made them optional for our dev that I talk about later. Okay, so that's 6. And then in 7, I think it's great timing that we look at a complete example here. Oh, I got to include the output. I didn't. So let me just show it to you. I will. So here's I'll take a print screen so you have it. So this, I think, is perfect to do before iDevs, because I think it gives you a good model to follow for breaking down a problem, doing the flow charts, breaking down a problem into its pieces, and walking through and creating output code. Okay, so So those are and again, I'll put a print screen for this one. Those are the two that you have. And what you can see by looking at the calendar is I've put them at the beginning of the week because I want to have you have as much time as possible for the Dev Zero. Okay, so now let me go look at, now that I've said all that, let me go look at our attendance for this week. Because what I've done here, this is the video that would be for covering the requirements, and really, and I'll probably also place it on the last item, but I wanted to give it to you here because, and this is why in week 2 at the end of it, I had you do some work related to your dev work. Okay. So I'm providing it here as a way to help preface this week. So there'll be no video. Well, should I? I don't know if it'll be helpful. I'll put this on Dev Zero, but we'll leave it here for now. So at this point, as I've said, the class has now officially started. I'm only into the first week. I'm just getting to know some of you. And this is the week, as I've said, I actually get to know you even more. Many of you are already on Discord, which is awesome. Some of you have run into a couple of challenges, but we've seen to help you navigate them. But hopefully, you're seeing some success. Some of you, and this is really okay too, some of you feel like maybe my documentation is a little too much. I'm willing to negotiate that with you. The idea is for you to code more. Honestly, if I had to reply to that, I would say at this point, the reason I require that is it's fairly simple just to watch and not do anything. And that's not the idea. It won't help you learn to be a better coder, programmer, developer by just watching. You need to actually do it, which is actually what we're doing this week. So now, having said that, let's actually open up, not this, let's open up the attendance as I was looking at before here. And so let's talk about this part and how this works. So I've put this at the beginning of the week to give you an opportunity to sign up for code reviews. Now, and I actually had it open already, so let me just do this. So this sheet, you'll put in your name, and you'll put in this case, if you want to come in for assistant sessions. Okay, so here's the way this works. So sessions, which are basically just my office hours, and all you're doing is reserving a time inside of my office hours to come see me. Okay, so that's when your sessions are. So there are sessions before the due date, so that you have to submit this code by Thursday night, okay, the 28th, and really by the time I wake up Friday, to be completely clear. Okay, so some folks, because I've already can see this, will come in for sessions before the due date. Now, what's the benefit of this? The benefit of this is that you want to submit your code, right? Even if it's not done, you just want me to look at it, and then you come into a session with me and we talk about either, challenges you're having, or just if you want to do a little before the review concept or whatever. But these sessions, they can be review sessions or they can be assistant sessions. So when you put your name down, tell me what kind of session you're going to do. So to be clear, assistance sessions are really only intended before the due date. Now, why would you do this besides getting help? Is if I look at your code and we say, okay, you have some challenges here, you can fix that before the actual due date. Now, depending on what kind of review we get done, you may either have to come back and do an actual review. And the review is where you go over your code with me. You talk about it. I ask you questions about it. I look at how well you met your requirements. I actually want you to submit it so that I can try to break it. Matter of fact, for these folks, because they have already submitted, I will for sure do that. Is I will actually go through and see, is there a point your code breaks? And we'll talk about that. So now, if for some reason these sessions, and they very well may fill up, then reach out to me and we'll figure out a time outside of my office hours that'll work for you. Okay. Actually, I realized this one's wrong, so I'll fix that. I thought I did before. Because Wednesday night is, and if you haven't seen this, Wednesday night is actually my late night, not Thursday night. So I'll fix that as well. Okay. So here's the deal. You have to submit your code, right, by this Thursday night. Yeah, these are right. By this Thursday night, or really Friday morning. And then you have these sessions to come and do your code review after it's been turned in. At this point, it cannot be changed. It is graded as is. Now, you can submit projects late. They are discounted 25%. Okay. So if you have any questions about that, and that's actually going to be my required reply here, is like, do you have any questions for clarification of how this week works? And what I would say is watch this video, watch my coverage of my code for Dev 0, and then ask me any questions. So it will be done in Zoom. Here's my link to my Zoom session. There's my passcode for my Zoom. Okay. So, and again, it might be helpful just to sign up for one of these if you're unsure, you haven't used Zoom a lot, you want to make sure your screen sharing works, again, reach out for me if these times don't work for you. I'll do my absolute best to work that out with you. Okay. So now we've talked about the Dev 0, but again, this video goes over those requirements in more detail. I've shown you, given you a link to the code review session. And what I want to see now in your reply is, right? Any questions? Oh, this is so funny. I'm wearing my headset when I'm using my other microphone. Too funny. I actually, and I will say this in my parting comments, is that in your reply, tell me you have any questions about that. One of the things I've noticed, and this is true, I experienced this when I was going to Fresno State many years ago, when I was taking something that was hard. I think it was calculus, and I couldn't figure out something. And I used to, as I would go to sleep at night, I would think of those problems that I was having a hard time with. And I noticed I didn't do it like consciously doing it, but I'd wake up in the morning, and more often than not, the solutions would come to me. And what happened was last night I did the same thing, and I've noticed I do this with code, is that I'll go to sleep thinking about how do I want to rewrite or how to write code to accomplish my specific task. And the more thought you give to something, I think the better job you will do. And then I actually saw a report, I think in the last 6 months, where this is actually a thing they study now, that when you actually think of something as you're heading off into sleep, your brain will actually work on it. And so it's so funny. I experienced this before there was scientific research behind it, but there is some study now that shows this. I think more than anything, my point about this is to give this assignment really the time and effort and whatever it needs for you to do a good job, because this is really what you're here to learn, which is how to write code on your own based on your own concept of what you want to create. Okay. So I hope that gives you an understanding. So in your reply, I'll say it one more time. Any questions about how this week works as far as the dev work or anything related to that? Okay. Again, you've just started in the real world. I hate it when I leave my mouse on there. I bet you do too. I bet you're wondering, Rio, move your mouse. It's just aggravating. Maybe it's just me. Now it's time for me to start working on week 4 in the Udemy course. I'm excited about that. I'm enjoying it a lot. Anyway, enough from me. Have a great one. Hope this helps you understand. If not, even if it does, I look forward to meeting you, which I will do this week and next. All right. Have a good one.